Welcome to this video that is going to be going over TrailFest Cannock Chase Forest, what you can expect on the course, some of the highlights, some of the ups, some of the downs, literally, figuratively, all sorts, and yeah, generally to allow you to turn up on the day knowing what to expect, no surprises, and hopefully lots and lots of joy. So I am at the point in the course where you will start, so it might look like a empty car park. It is, although for some reason there are portaloos here, which I wasn't expecting. There will be portaloos here when it's our event, obviously. We'll look after you in that sense, don't worry about that. But in this section here is where you will come to register and where the event will start. So this area here is nice and big, so it means that as much as we've got, you know, our infrastructure in there, there is lots of space for your friends, family, so on, to sort of hang out as well. As I sort of come out of where the start is, just to give you a bit of a sense as to where you are, the far end behind me, that is where the main road is, and that is where the parking is, and so on and so on. I'll show all of that at the end when I get to it again. But it's about, I don't know, half a mile walk, so it's not a massive walk. But if you're planning on bringing too much stuff, then you're going to have to bring it in and bring it out. You can't drive up this road. People try, people ask, no, you can't. So you can't drive up the road, so don't bring too much stuff. You don't need 15 ice coolers full of cans of Coke. We'll have Coke for you. So just sort of plan accordingly, I guess. But this is where the events will start. The 50k actually does a straight out and back behind me, onto to make up that last little half mile or whatever it is that is needed to make it 50k rather than, or to make it 31 miles rather than 30.3, which is what it is if you do 3 laps. So this is the way that all of the routes end up starting. There is a little bit of variation. I won't be able to go over every single step of every single route, just because I don't really want to. And the main gist of what you'll see today will be the backbone of all of the routes. So I'm going to be doing the 10-mile lap that we have set up here. That features on every single distance, so whether it's 10k, half marathon, marathon, or 50k, it just depends how much of that you do. So for the 10k, you immediately go slightly differently and effectively go straight down to the section that's called the switchbacks, which I will highlight a lot. But it's effectively the same. So you're seeing lots and lots of the similar bits, and you'll get a really good understanding of what the course is like, what it's like underfoot, what the main sections are, so on and so on. So hopefully, if you've already entered, you know what you're going to be getting yourself, what you've signed up to, I suppose. And if you've not entered, hopefully it'll make you think, I fancy a bit of that. Just for context, this is filmed at the beginning of July 2025. Yesterday we had massive downpours, so we're sort of in the middle of a load of heat waves. We just had one last week, we're having one again this week, but yesterday, real sort of cataclysmic rain. So we'll see what the conditions are like, but it might be a slightly bit stickier in places. It doesn't really get that muddy on this route, sort of any time of year, but it might look a little bit sloppier than it would do normally, or how it's going to look tomorrow or even later on today. But I had to do it now, otherwise I didn't have a chance to do it for weeks. So I planned this in, so we're filming it anyway. But this is the first little bit of the course. So as you can see, really quite stony underfoot, but they are hard stones. We do get into some sort of more sandy sections in a moment. Obviously I'll show you all of that, but lots of vegetation and virtual silence out here, which is lovely. So I'm going to go for a little run. About half a mile in, just over, and the bank that you can see in front of me is an old sandbank from when they used to use this for, I'm going to say, military practice. So this is referred to as the rifle range, and I think if you go sort of wandering off the course, or off the path, I think you'll find sort of spent ammunition, if it hasn't already been collected by people over 50, 60 years. But the start where we were just filming, that is actually a military defence cadet hut centre type thing. So quite often there will be cars going up to it, and there'll be people out there doing things, I don't know what. But there's a lot of military history up on Cannock Chase, of which I know very little. But I do know that this section here is where they used to test quite a lot of stuff. I'm going to suggest during the Second World War, I think we're going back quite a long way, but this is where they used to come and do shooting practice. As you go round the corner of the rifle range, you then come more into the woods. So this is the first section where you might have to be ducking and diving under some of the branches. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is a little bit stickier here purely because we had so much rain yesterday and overnight. I would expect, if it's not been raining, that this bit will be very much sort of a sandy gravel. Obviously it depends on what the weather's been like leading up to the event, but I would expect this to be a sandier gravel. We're about a mile in at this point, and like I said, I'm not going to be able to go over every single part of all the other different routes that we use here, but if you're doing the half marathon, what you'll do for your little 3-mile loop is when you come out of this wooded section, you will then do a sharp left turn, and you'll go down that road there, and you get to the aid station, which will become clear when I talk about it, when I get there. But you'll go straight to the aid station, and then you'll complete the lap. So rather than doing a 10-mile loop, going that way makes it a 3-mile loop. All the other routes, everybody else who starts this way will then be coming down this way. My watch has just clicked over to 2 miles, and this is then the first climb, and I'll turn the camera around in a moment, but the climbs that you'll watch, I promise you, will not look particularly bad, or I say bad, I mean steep. But it's a pretty well-known fact that when you watch anything, the gradient just doesn't look much at all. Watch your Tour de France, have a look at that, see what they say the percentage is, and then find a local hill, if you can even find one in this country with those sort of percentages, and then you see if it sort of matches up. But I will try my best to show you what these hills look like. I think if you go down quite low, you get a bit of an idea, but it's really not going to sort of show you what it looks like and how it feels, if that makes sense. I think I've explained that badly. What might give it away a little bit is if I'm moving along while this is recording, just how much more out of breath I get. Not that I'm the beacon of fitness or anything, but climbing these, talking at the same time, gets more and more tiring. You'll see as we get through to some of the other bits, I'm going to get even more and more out of breath. Hopefully it'll make for all right listening. But as you can see, it looks a little bit like Jurassic Park. Massive, great big ferns, absolutely beautiful. You can hear a little bit of water dropping, like I said many times. It's just because it's rained yesterday, but it's lovely here. But this is the first climb. So on the 10-mile lap, this is 2 miles in. The first 2 miles effectively is downhill. It's not all perfectly downhill, but it's pretty much downhill for the first 2 miles. I absolutely love this section. As you come down, again, I keep referring to it, but we're leading to the switchback just around the corner here. But as you look out, lovely downhill, lovely and runnable, but just looking out over the pine forest, absolutely beautiful. You can see in the background a beautiful little I'm going to say river. Don't know if technically that's correct, but it's flowing water, so I'm going to call it a river. Just that river down there. We don't go down to it. I have just crossed over it just now, but you're running along this bit of track, really easy, runnable, flat, bit stony, but you know, flat and not technical. Definitely make sure just to look down there, see that little river going along. Really is a beautiful bit of the wood or forest, whatever. You could probably cross it looking down there if you did come and have a little play on your own, but that's not part of the route. Please don't go across the river on the event day. But it's just a little bit of paradise about, I don't know, 400 meters before your world's going to end at the switchbacks. This is the first bit where you see the switchbacks, which I will go on about loads, and you might realise why in this video. If you're here on the day, I'd hope you realise why on the day. So this is the first one. So the switchbacks, this is what the locals call them. I wouldn't refer to them as switchbacks. I would call it more of a roller coaster, because what happens is you go up and over 5 of these climbs. They're not long. I mean, this is one of the longer ones, maybe 200 meters. I'm gonna take a punt that it's somewhere between 15 and 20% gradient. There's no point looking on Strava because it just doesn't really capture it at all. I think because they're quite short, it just doesn't really bring it into any relativeness. It doesn't really pick up on it. You can't really get a particularly good sort of angle to show how steep it is here. But as I said previously, you can tell I'm going very slowly. I'm getting very out of breath. It is steep. If you're from the lakes or you've gone alpine running and you know you're a mountain runner, this is nothing. If, however, like myself, you live in Rugby where it's flat and you know you didn't go to the lakes as a kid, you're not some mountain goat, this is punchy, to say the least. And I'm sure the people that win it, male, female, they'll run these. They'll think it's tough, but they'll run them. But that'll only be a very select handful that will run all 5. There will be quite a few driven by ego that will run the first one, and they might run the second. They'll get to the third, they'll tire, they'll get to the fourth, and they'll claim they've got an injury, and they'll start walking. It's tough. It's just tough. There's no two ways about it. It's hilly, it's short, it's sharp, it's not lovely underfoot, it's quite sandy and stony, so it's a bit slippy, so you do need to have a bit of protection. And then when you get to the top, there's literally 10 meters of flat, and so you then immediately hit the downhill for the next one, and then the uphill again just goes straight up and down. That's what makes these so challenging, is that there's no respite. There's no 400 meters in between each one. It's just up, down, up, down. And the one that I've just gone over, if I remember the sign, you'll see that one's called Sally's Switchback. When we were out doing a recce, there was maybe 30 of us coming out, I want to say 2023 April, all run along. Sally's been to loads of my events, lovely lady, done, you know, is a competent runner, experienced runner, you know, knew what she was doing. Anyway, takes an innocuous fall at the top of that last switchback, innocuous fall, and can't get back up. And I say, you know, that'd be get. Anyway, can't get up. Long and short of it, we're there for another 4 hours. She's broken her leg. We have to get 999 to come in. Ends up being, from memory, 8-10 young strapping men and a all-terrain vehicle that has to then driver off the side because the paramedics didn't want to have to go up and down this with a stretcher. And there were some complications along the way that made it a pretty harrowing experience. But the bit that we all learnt from that was that the foil blanket genuinely saved the day, and without the foil blankets that could have been really, really bad. So we all had foil blankets. She needed 5 to keep her non-hypothermic but not warm. She was very much beginning to feel the effects of the cold, and that's with the 5 foil blankets on her. And it was April. I mean, it wasn't hot, wasn't cold, pretty standard April. But that's why it's called Sally's Switchback. So if you see that sign, hopefully I remember it, that is the backstory to there. So as you can see, I've gone over 2 of them now, and then I think this one, I want to say, is the steepest one and the most treacherous underfoot. So as you can see, it's pretty steep, but it's very stony. So that's the bit that sort of catches you out. And like I say, if you are used to the lakes or bits of the Peak District and things like that, this is sort of par for the course. If you're coming out of Birmingham or Cannock Town Centre and you're used to doing park runs and this is your first attempt at a 10k on trail, this is going to feel like doing Everest. That said, it's all completely doable for everyone. But if you've set a 10k PB of an hour and 5 minutes at, I don't know, the Lichfield 10k, you're not going to be doing an hour and 5 minutes here. It is going to take you a lot longer, but it's also a lot more enjoyable. So as you can hear, I get slower and more out of breath. But it's just about changing your expectations. If you come here and you set a distance PB, I'd suggest you sign up for the weekend after on a road course and you will absolutely hammer that PB. It is not an easy course, but it is accessible to anybody that is happy to sort of grind it out going up the hills, be a bit sensible going down the hills. So it's not technical, but it's not running around your local park either. I absolutely love it. And like I say, it's very difficult to sort of give you the real indication as to exactly how steep it is. But now I'm at the top of the 3rd of the 5 switchbacks, a bit of an understanding as to how steep it is. But like I say, it's not a perfect science, because I don't know what happens in video, but it never ever ever looks as steep as it feels. A little bit of a gap between the top of the 3rd and the downhill on the 3rd of the switchbacks, but during that gap you get these views. I'll be honest, I don't know what the view is of, but it's very pretty. And then back down the slightly sketchy underfoot. This is the back end of the 3rd one. So I've got my trusty Ultra Lone Peak 9 Plus, which have the Vibram sole. They are a road to trail sort of shoe, so not super aggressive at all, but they are pretty well suited to this course, to be honest. So you could probably run this in road shoes. I mean, you're going to ruin the bottom of them if they're sort of really light ones. I wouldn't run it in road shoes. I'm sure people will. I would suggest a light trail shoe is what you want for this. There's nowhere when we run this event where it's going to be thick deep mud, so you don't need super great big thick lugs or anything, but you do want a little bit of stone protection, otherwise your feet are going to really, really hurt when you come towards the finish. And then it's just up the 4th. This is what I mean, so we just hit the bottom and then immediately straight back up the other side. I've reached the top of the 4th of the switchbacks. That tree in the background, the dead tree, is a bit of a local landmark. I don't know its story at all, but a lot of people stop for a picture with the dead tree behind them. I think mainly to give themselves a break, which I'll be honest, recording this is giving me lots of nice little breaks. It is a tough route. I'm in no sort of fitness at all, so having some little breaks is very, very welcome, and I strongly suggest taking it steady, especially if you're coming to do maybe your first 50k here. By all means, you know, the cutoff is extremely generous. I don't expect to have anybody really anywhere near that, but if it's your first go at it, I really wouldn't go absolutely hell for leather from the off, because I would suggest you're going to pay for that when you get towards the finish. This is a lovely addition to the course. We seem to have a tree down over the top of the route, but you can dip your head underneath it, and it does make for something a little bit different. I assume it's still stable. I'll give it a little test, but yeah, hopefully this will still be here on event day. You come off the switchbacks. I've now completed the switchbacks, and then there's a period here. We're about 3.5 miles in. It's about 1.5 miles to the aid station, and it's a lot of up and down. There's no sort of big hills in there really. Lots of up and down. Underfoot, so you can see behind me, we're on sort of fire tracks, forest roads, but these aren't ones that people tend to drive along. They're very much sort of emergency access, so they're pretty wild, as in they have wildlife on them, not crazy zany wild. But as you can see behind me, that bit there, you know, that's not a fire track that is used often by small vehicles. These are getting a bit tighter, but still very gravelly underfoot. So it's not, there's at no point here do you touch a step of tarmac. It is all very much like this. This is what Cannock Chase is like on this side of the road. Around 1 mile from the aid station at this point, this is a lovely downhill. Beautiful sort of gradient for it, if not a little bit steep to be really going for it, but underfoot again very stony. You can hear it under, well, I'm sure you can hear it a little bit on the recording. It's just a little bit slippy, so as you get further down this slope and it starts to sort of flatten out, then you can sort of put the hammer down as you sort of cross over this little bit here. But then you get into a few little rollers up and down. Again, beautiful to look around. Virtual silence, except for my voice. Really is beautiful here. You're only about 1 mile from the aid station, but you feel like you're 1,000,000 miles from anybody, which is what it's all about. At this point, you're coming towards the trig point, which we don't actually visit, but if you really wanted to go and bag the trig point, it's probably 50 metres off the course, just before you turn towards the aid station. This section up here, I believe, is heather. Normally very pretty. Very often you'll see people with horses, not normally on this track actually, but on the one just up there, so you can see the horses but they don't really get in your way. On the route so far, I've been out here for 1.5 hours. I've not seen anybody beyond the first 50 metres where a few dog walkers were going back to the car park. It's really remote, but on the event day you're never actually more than 2 miles away from the start finish, never really any more than 1 mile away from the aid station, so it feels remote, but you've got safety of knowing that there's people around all the time. So this bit, you know, again, we can sort of get into heather and fern, a bit more exposed up here, so if it is a hot day you will be out in the sun at this point, I would imagine, and if it's a really wet and windy day, this will be where it hits you. But on the 10-mile loop we're coming up to about 4.5 miles, because we're coming towards the aid station, and then on the 10k lap you're coming up to about 5 miles, something like that. So you're going to hit the aid station in a moment, and I'll explain what happens when you get there. I am just entering where the aid station, the on-course aid station, is going to be. So for the 10-mile lap, really simple. You get to the aid station. The aid station is going to be just there in that corner, sort of in the grass, and you'll be here 5 miles, and then you'll be here at 8 miles on each lap. So the first time you come to it, you can use the aid station, and then you head off left and you go that way. We're going to come back to it, so I'm going to run the little 3-mile loop, and then when you come back to it, you'll be coming up this hill. The aid station will be in front of you, and you'll do a left again. Really simple. If you're doing the marathon and the 10k, the 10k lap, which is what the marathon runners do to start with, and obviously the 10k lap, that is all it is, you will get to this aid station about mile 5. So you've got about a mile left if you're doing the 10k. You've still got 21 miles left if you're doing the marathon. But you will turn right at this aid station, and then you'll go that way, and you'll be on your way home. So I'll make it clear on the video, if I haven't done already, at what point you are on bits that are on the 10k lap and which bits you're on a different bit. If you're doing the half marathon, on your first little 3-mile lap, you're actually going to come up from this way first, and so you're going to see the aid station here after 2 miles. So you'll go past the aid station again, you'll do a left like everybody else, and then you'll go back effectively to the start, and then you'll do one big 10-mile lap. That might sound a little bit confusing. I think it does sound confusing, but I promise all of our events, if you've never been to a Big Bear event, all of our events are in heavily marked. I'm going to buy special signage, because you learn lessons every time you do these things. It's the first time last year that we had the TrailFest format here, and literally out of 400 people, 1 or 2 people got a bit confused at that aid station, because with all courses everywhere, regardless of what you're doing, if you stand in the middle of a crossroads like that and then you spin yourself around 100 times, it's then quite difficult to work out where you're going, and requires you to use a little bit of thought as to which way did I come in and which way am I now going. If you get there and you don't consciously remember which way you came in, and then you stand at the aid station for 10 minutes, and then you ask, and you don't know how far you've been, and then you ask a volunteer, which way am I going to go? It's impossible for them to know. So, because they don't know where you've come from, how far you've gone, or sort of what you're doing. So you've got to take a little bit of responsibility. However, I'm going to get great big A1 signs made up that say 10k, marathon first lap, right, all other routes left. And then coming into the aid station the other way, half marathon first lap left, all routes left. So it's really simple. It's not complicated. It's not run around 6 times and then on the 7th do a left or something like this. It's not that at all. It just requires a little bit of thought about which way you're going, what lap you're on, what course you're doing, just having a little bit of a sense check as to what's going on. But the aid station there, you'll see that twice if you're doing the 10 mile, the backbone of the course up here, if you're doing the 10-mile lap, because you pass that at mile 5, and then you effectively do a big rectangle around here, down there, and then you come back up to the aid station at about mile 8, where you will then be on your way home back to HQ. I should add as well, when it comes to that aid station, that when you're on the 10k and the marathon and you're doing the 10k lap, you do actually run straight through that aid station after half a mile. So that is the other bit that does slightly confuse things, but that's really obvious. At that point there'll be quite a few people actually in and around you, because it's the beginning of the event, so it'll be quite busy, and so you just go straight through. So again, I'll put up a nice clear sign that says marathon straight on only, or 10k straight on only, and then you come straight down this route. So for everybody else, this will be 5 miles into the 10-mile loop, but for the 10k and the marathon runners, this section here that I'm on is just over half a mile, 3/4 of a mile in, and it is the most runnable downhill section of the route and pretty much of anywhere you'll ever go. So underfoot, it's a tiny bit stony, but it's a bit more solid here. It's not sort of it's not pebbly, it's more sort of hard packed stone, and it is a beautiful sort of 2% downhill, which makes it just an absolute joy to run down. And if you're doing the 10k and the marathon, you just have this 1.5 miles of downhill immediately met with the switchbacks, which is obviously like chalk and cheese, but makes for a really, really good event because people massively over egg it on the downhill and then hit those switchbacks and regret it. From the aid station, this is about a mile further on. All been downhill since, just that nice wide fire track, and then you turn off getting towards Abraham's Valley, which is just at the end here. But again, beautiful downhill, good underfoot here as well if you're sort of used to a bit of trail. If you're not, it's still not particularly gnarly at any point, it's pretty decent. But again, those beautiful views of the pine forest in front of you, and the switchbacks for those on the 10k and the marathon lap are just coming. And for those of you that are doing the 10-mile lap at this point, so if you're on lap 2 and 3 of the marathon, or you're doing the 50k or the half marathon, the Abraham's Valley climb is just around the corner. The downhill continues for the marathon / 10k lap, because at this point we get another split. So the 10k runners go left, marathon runners on their first lap go left, and then you do meet the bottom of the switchbacks, which I appreciate I've been going on about all the time, but they are a bit of a highlight of this course. So you then meet with the course that comes out just down there. So on the 10-mile lap, runners would have done 2.5 miles at that point, but on the 10k lap you'll have done 1.5 miles, give or take. Everybody else will turn right, and then you're at the bottom. This track here is called Abraham's Valley, I think, or Abraham's Way, something like that, and you effectively climb now all the way back up to the aid station. As you come out of the aid station for the first time at mile 5, you then pretty much do a rectangle to then get back to the aid station. The first long side and short side is all downhill, and then the long side and short side is all uphill. So it's pretty much 1.5 miles downhill and then 1.5 miles back uphill. None of it is particularly steep at all. The sort of thing that if you were just doing it as a run, you'd know you were doing it, but you'd be fine running it. If you're doing it as part of a 50k and you're not a mountain goat, it's very much the sort of thing you sort of feel like you should probably walk, but you're not sure if you should because it's not quite steep enough. And then come the third lap, you definitely know you're walking it because it's definitely steep enough. But the first time you get to it, it's sort of in between being hilly enough to stop and also maybe flat enough to run because you want to sort of try and make a bit of time. But nice and open. If you're really quiet, you can hear the water just down below. Down here there are some breaks that you'll get, so you'll be able to see the water like you could do on the first section. Beautiful as always. As you come off Abraham's Way, you then join this sort of white road here, and behind me, if you're doing the half marathon, this will be 1.5 miles in, because you sort of join the route here and then you carry on and complete the rest of the route. But this is part of what the locals call Killer Hill, which I never quite understood until we then added in the little half marathon loop, because if you start from where the half marathon turns, it's not steep. There's lots of steeper hills on Cannock Chase, but it's continuous. You're just continuously going at about 4-5% maybe, something like that uphill. So again, it's not super steep at all, but when it's that sort of slow drag, it's a killer, hence Killer Hill. It's the sort of place where if you live locally, I'd imagine it's the perfect hill repeats sort of hill, because you can run it, it's not that steep, but you're doing it for more than 30 seconds and the lactate build up. But as you come around that corner for all the other routes, behind me you will then see the aid station there waiting for you. And when you get to that aid station, if you're coming from this direction, everybody turns left. So you'll see the aid station on the hill beckoning you, and then from there you've got 2 miles left of the 10-mile course, of the 10-mile lap, sorry, and you're getting towards home. The aid station is behind you. You're at about mile, getting towards 8.5 now if you're doing the 10-mile lap. And to be honest, HQ is about half a mile down the road. However, you take a little turn and you then come off the beaten track, and then this is the final 2 miles-ish, 1.5 miles, where you're on much more single track, deeper in the woods, and it's generally quite good fun, this section. Don't expect this bit to be wet like it is today. As I said at the start, we had lots of heavy rain last night. I doubt there's been puddles here for weeks, and I imagine these were gone by the end of the day. But you're getting into some beautiful downhill, sort of single track. Depends how overgrown it gets. It gets a bit tighter the further down we go. Beautiful and runnable with those amazing views the further you look out. But to be honest, if you're going at any sort of pace, you might have to stop to look up, otherwise you're going to fall flat on your face. The path's getting tighter and tighter with the more and more weeds and the grass and things that are growing. Come the end of the summer, this might be even tighter. Got a little step here to go over. There is a little route round if you don't want to go over the branch, but that's been there now for well over a year, so I doubt that's going to be going anywhere before any events. That's probably going to be a permanent fixture. I'm getting absolutely soaked with the long grass here, but like I say, I wouldn't expect it to be wet most of the year, and now we're getting into even tighter, a few brambles sticking over. This is where long shorts or tights could be handy, especially if you're going to be the first one through here. I'm sure come the end of the 50k, this will be nice and trampled down by everybody else that's gone before you. Another little decision point. This is the last one for everybody actually. So you come out from the lovely little single track that you've just been on there. If you're doing the 10k lap, you then do a left. This is about 3/4 of a mile of just steady uphill to the finish. It is a tough finish to a 10k. Obviously if you're doing the 10k lap as part of the marathon, you've still got another 20 miles to go, so don't worry about it. But if you're trying to do a sprint finish because you've got half a mile left on your watch, I'd tamper those thoughts a little bit maybe, and run to the conditions. But if you're doing the 10-mile lap, you then have another effectively hidden switchback behind you. This one may well be the worst underfoot. It's effectively like walking along a rubbish beach. It is all just massive pebbles and a steep gradient. But when you get here, you know you're nearly towards the finish of the lap and the main chunky bits. Yeah, this is, again, you can hear from my laboured voice and very slow footsteps, quite a gradient, especially when it just catches you out of the blue. You turn the corner and bang, it's in front of you. As with the other switchbacks, this one's no different. Straight to the top, straight over the other side. And then the downhill, as much as it's obviously easier than the uphill, still isn't easy because underfoot it's not great here as well. It's quite tight, so your ankles are bending inwards everywhere. But you then come down to the bottom and you run next to the beautiful little Sherbrooke. If you've got this far into the recording, you're obviously pretty interested in running, or you've already signed up to the TrailFest Cannock Chase Forest. Hopefully I've given you a decent indication of what most of the route's like. Still a little bit more left, but it's very similar to what we've already done. It's not the world's most brutalist, toughest, whatever event ever in the world at all. None of the stuff that I ever put on do I make claims like that. Generally because they're not. Also because I feel like it's all relative. So, as I've sort of already mentioned, if you've only ever done park runs, then this will feel like an insurmountable task that's tougher than anything you've ever done. But if you've been spending your life in the Alps, this will feel like a literal walk in the park. So it's all relative. However, I don't think anybody's coming here thinking this is easy, this is flat, this wasn't more tricky than I thought it was going to be. So it's about knowing what's coming and respecting the course. That said, all of our routes have incredibly long cut-off times. The tightest is the 50k, which you've then got, from memory, I'm going to say 13 hours to complete. So 13 hours to complete a 50k. If you're struggling for that, with the best will in the world, maybe tackle shorter distances. And that's not to be rude, and I'm for everybody doing everything and trying it. But 50k, 13 hours, that's quite a long cut-off. A little pause there, did the maths. It's somewhere between 2.5 and 3 miles an hour. That's not fast. That is very much a walking pace. So you can walk this and still be within the cut-off. For the 10k, it's the same cut-off, pretty much. You start a little bit later, so fine, it's not 13 hours, it's 12 or something like that. So, you know, for 10k, there's no cut-off. You don't need to be running the whole thing. If you want to go very gingerly down all of the slopes and walk very slowly up the slopes, absolutely fine. You know, don't walk around with your arms stretched right out so people can't run past you. But we're all here to share the trail. I don't care how fast you go. It makes no difference to me whatsoever. So hopefully we'll get a really good mix. When we did this event last year, the first year we did it in 2024, the amount of people doing their first ever trail event or their first 10k, their first half marathon, must have been half the people, and they loved it, absolutely loved it. They found it hard, but it makes it so much more rewarding. And it's not hard and you're getting worried that you're going to get cut off or the sweeper's going to come around and get you or anything like that. It's just hard because it's hard, but it's so much more rewarding. So hopefully you'll have seen this video and you'll come and give it a go, and you'll see how much fun it is here at Cannock Chase Forest. A real sting in the tail just as you come sort of at mile 9, the last sort of half a mile till we get back to the flat bit, back to the main HQ that we'll get to in a moment. Again, just that irritating gradient, sort of not steep enough to walk, sort of too steep to run. Mix in some very soft, pebbly, sandy material, and it's a bit tough. What lots of people do, and what are we doing, is walking right on the edge where it's a bit muddier, a bit firmer, and you haven't got the stones to contend with. It does feel a little bit weird, and it does look a bit odd as you see a train of people running up the side of the path, leaving a 4-metre path with nobody on it, and everybody's just following each other up this little bit here. But there is a logic behind it. It's a lot nicer to run up. As you get to the end of that long drag, and having just done it, I forgot quite how long and how draggy it was. You get to the end of the long drag and then you get back towards civilization. So this is very, very close to the finish of the lap. you'll come round the gate that you'll just see in the background, and then you're coming effectively through a car park. So you can see behind me is quite a fast main road. The parking, which I'll show in a moment, is just the other side of the road, and you will then finish going through this car park where you can see the little silver gate that I'm just about to walk through. The gate there will be closed, so it's open today because it's a Monday, people are working and so on and so on, but we're in charge of that gate effectively on race day, so that gate will be closed mainly to prevent people driving onto our course and anybody thinking they're going to go and pick their runners up straight from the finish. They're not. You're going to have to just walk down this little route. You do have a 10-minute walk from the car park, so just factor that in when you are doing your planning for the day. But hopefully it's given you a decent indication of what it's like here at Cannock Chase Forest. If you want to come and really see for yourself, sign up for the event, or come and have a practice run around here. The GPX files are on the website. It's open all year round, it's runnable, it's lovely. You can park on the course for free as well. Obviously there's forestry work going on, follow their signs, you know, be sensible. But it's a really nice place to run. I don't really think there are any crazy little turns that you won't be able to follow easily with a GPX. Obviously on the day it will be heavily marked, so you cannot go wrong. Well, you should not be able to go wrong on the day. I don't recall anybody really getting lost before here, and we've had 1,000 plus people come and run the course, so just follow our arrows, you'll be absolutely fine. But if you want to know what you're going to get yourself in for, then do come and have a look before the day. And now I'm just going to show you some little bits from the car park as well, so you know what that looks like, just so you don't have any surprises on the day. The parking is, like I've said before, about 10 minutes from the actual start line, and it is in Takaroo campsite. So this gate will be open by us, we'll be manning it the whole time, but you're going to be coming through this gate, and then it's a little bit of a drive down into the campsite, and then you'll be parking on the grass in the campsite. So it's one of the reasons that this event is very unlikely to ever happen. Well, especially up here, this setup will not happen outside of the summer months, because I'm not parking a load of people on grass in December, because that's for madmen. But it's a little bit of a walk. You do need to cross over that fast road as well, so obviously take care. You're all adults, so that should be a bit of a given, but it's a fast road, so just be sensible. And if you're going to be coming in a Ferrari, you might not have loads of fun parking, as much as it's pretty decent up here, because it is a campsite, so it means it's relatively flat. It is still grass, so just be sensible. But there is tons of parking up here, so as long as you park sensibly and you don't park with a space and a half in between every car, you don't have to worry about getting parked. I think the last event we had here, we had maybe 300 cars and we half filled it, something like that. So there's tons and tons of space up here, but this is where the parking is. There's other ways to get back here, so when you actually finish the event, you'll probably walk just straight down the finish line part and just cross over straight there, right on the corner. But at the beginning of the day, we walk everybody back down where the cars are coming, cross over into that car park you can see behind me, and then I put arrows up to guide you to the start line. So we make it so it's really obvious and clear and simple. All right, this is the whole aim of the game for all of it, is to make it clear and simple. If you've got spectators as well, they're allowed to park in here. If they're going to be going during the day, if they park in the car park opposite, it might make it a bit easier. But to be honest, this gate will be marshalled for the whole day, so it doesn't really make too much of a difference. But there's loads of parking up here, is sort of my point.